Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone to the regular meeting, July 19th, 2021, of the Cobb County Board of Elections and Registration. The meeting is called to order at 3 o'clock. The first item on our agenda is election of our board member officers, and I'd like to open the nominations for our chair at this point. And I'd also like to open the nominations myself by nominating Tori Silas. Are there other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Jessica Brooks.
Mr. Gartland, I appreciate your show of support and respect, and I respectfully decline, but thank you.
We just appreciate all the hard work you've put in and all the research and due diligence, and it's just a blessing to have you here. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
For your service.
Thank you. Are there other nominations? Okay, with that, we'll close the nominations and we'll vote. All of our board members are present in person with the exception of Jennifer Mosbacher, and Jennifer is joining us by WebEx. Hi, Jen. So we will now vote on the one nominee for chair, and that is Tori Silas. Okay, Jennifer, I'm not sure how we see. Well, let me just ask you, so because we can see you, I can't hear you at this point. So is your vote yes? Is your vote no? Or
yes,
is your vote...
my vote.
Okay.
I was just going to ask how somebody wanted me to vote, but I vote yes.
Okay, thank you. Then we have 3 votes yes for Tori, and we have 2 votes abstaining. So, Tori Silas, I hand over the meeting to you.
The first order of business is to actually turn the microphone on. Thank you so much for that, Jessica, and I echo Pat's sentiments in thanking you for your service to date as well as your service going forward. With that, we'll proceed with additional nominations of the officers for the Board of Elections. Next up is the office of Vice Chair. And I would like to open those nominations by nominating Jessica Brooks. Are there any additional nominations at this time? Hearing none, we'll close the nominations and go ahead and call for votes from those of us that are here in the room. Please mark your vote. And Jennifer, if you might go ahead and just give us a voice vote, please.
Yes, I vote yes.
Thank you. It is unanimous. All members of the board have voted in favor of Jessica becoming our vice chair. Congratulations. Moving next to the elected officer position of secretary, I would also like to make a nomination for this position, that being Jennifer Mosbacher. Are there additional nominations at this time? Hearing none, we'll close the nominations, and if everyone here in the room will mark the votes, please. And Jennifer, if you will provide a voice vote of yes, no, or abstain.
Abstain.
Okay, thank you. Notwithstanding the 2 abstentions, one from Jennifer, one from Pat, there are 3 votes in favor, so Jennifer is our secretary. Congratulations, Jennifer. Moving to the final elected officer position, I'd like to open or call for nominations for assistant secretary, please.
Madam Chair, I'd like to nominate Pat Gartland as the Assistant Chair. He's given long, excellent service to the Board of Elections, and I'd like to place his name in nomination.
Okay. May I make a friendly amendment? I believe you meant Assistant Secretary?
I said Assistant Secretary. Thank you.
Of course.
Let me back off. I'll back out. I think you would be better. You've done this before, and I would like to hold off. Thank you.
Okay. So, Steve, you've nominated Pat, and he has declined the nomination and has, in turn,
I'd like to go ahead and nominate Steve.
okay. Are there additional nominations at this time? Hearing none, we'll close the nominations, and those of us in the room, please vote with respect to Steve Bruning becoming the Assistant Secretary of the Board. Jennifer, if you'll provide a voice vote, yes, no, or abstain.
Yes.
Thank you. Noting that Steve has abstained, there are four votes in favor. Steve, you are now our Assistant Secretary. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay. First order of business having been concluded, our officers are as follows. Tori Silas, our chair, Jessica Brooks, our vice chair, Jennifer Mossbacher, our secretary, and Steve Bruning, our assistant secretary. Moving on to the second order of business on the agenda, public comment. Don't believe we have any takers today.
There are no names on the public comment list.
Okay, excellent. Moving on to the next order of business, we will have the Director's Election Night Report and subsequent the certification of the July 13th, 2021 HD 34 special election runoff. Ms. Evler, if you'll provide your report, please.
Yes, thank you. You have, all of you in front of you, the election summary report, which is the report from the tabulating system showing that there were 8,908 ballots cast, and there were actually 8,905 votes on those ballots, so there are 3 blank ballots. That is not uncommon to see that occasionally. So this came up to a 21.16% turnout, which was higher than the original election, which is a very good turnout for a runoff. You also have in front of you the report from election night, which shows some data points that we usually have from each election, where we try and track specific things throughout the election cycles. And I'm sorry, Jennifer, I did not get this information to you, but I will send it as soon as possible. We had our first precinct in at 8:03 p.m., an hour after closing, and our last precinct in was 9:13 p.m. The polls left nothing, the poll managers left nothing that they were supposed to bring back at the polls, which is good. They did their jobs right, and the absentee was uploaded and released the early in advance at 7:24 and the mail at 8:04. We were out of there by 10 to 10:15, which was a very early night. Everything went very smoothly. You can also see in this report that we had 9 provisional ballots issued, and we were able to count 5 of those. And then at the last, at the bottom of the page, showing the number of absentee mail issued was 205, and 185 of those came back. So that's quite a bit of turnout for the mail as well. And the in-person was 3,355 counted. So with these information sheets, I also went through and looked at all of the polling place data that the poll managers returned, and there were no anomalies that would have affected the results. There was one poll that they believe that a voter walked out with their ballot. So the number of people checked in was one more than the number of ballots that were in the scanner. And so the only thing that they could come up with was that somebody walked out with their ballot. So that was the only real anomaly, obviously not anything that would affect the final results. So I would ask that the board, if there are no questions, go ahead and certify the July 13th, 2021 special election runoff.
Could I ask one question, Janine? Could I ask one question?
Sure.
I'd like to know the reason that 4 of the provisional ballots were not counted.
They were, I don't know if I have that information.
Did not bring in an ID.
Right. One person did not bring their ID. They
I
would.
believe the other 3 were registration issues, but
Right.
I can confirm that.
We can-
in an email.
We can give you that information offline, but we know for sure that one of them was that they came in and voted provisional because they didn't have their photo ID, and they never did bring it in. But there were 4 that were counted, and they were out of precinct, which I know is one of the issues that we're dealing with in the new election law. They did vote after 5 p.m. They did an affidavit, so their ballots were counted. But as far as the other 3, one was the photo ID issue, didn't come in. The other 3 that were not counted, as Bo says, that we believe they were registration issues where they were not registered in HD 34.
Thank you.
Sure.
Are there other questions for the director?
Make a motion that we accept it.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we certify the results from House District 34 special election runoff held on July 13th. All those in favor, please indicate such. I note for the meeting minutes that Ms. Mosbacher is raising her hand on our screen. Everyone has voted, and all members of the board have voted in favor of the certification of the election results. Moving on to the next item of on the agenda, the public hearing session. I believe we are going to be joined by Ms. Carol Pringle.
The Board of Election is requesting approval to change the location of polling place for Willio 01 from Bethany Presbyterian Church at 4644 Sandy Plains Road in Marietta, Georgia, 30066, to Cobb Community Church at 4649 Sandy Plains Road, Marietta, Georgia, 30066. And we are requesting this change because the current polling location at Bethany Presbyterian Church has notified the elections office that they are no longer willing to serve as a polling location. Therefore, we have secured Cobb Community Church to be a polling location for future elections. There are 2,863 active registered voters. The distance from the existing polling location is 0.3 miles. It is outside of the precinct boundary, and the effective date for this would be July the 19th, 2021. We need a new polling location, so we need for this to be accepted.
Excellent, thank you, Ms. Pringle. Don't really have anyone here for public. The microphone is always necessary. We do not have anyone here for public comment to my knowledge, but I do obviously want to provide the, on the record, the opportunity for anyone to speak publicly before we defer to any comments from the board. With that, are there any comments from the board? Here in the room? Ms. Mossbacher, do you have any comments? This is with respect to item 4A as an apple on our agenda.
She doesn't have it in front of her.
No, I think this one I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay. There being no comment from the board, or for that matter, from the public, at this point, I'm happy to entertain a motion with respect to the report.
Accept it.
Okay.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded to approve the changing of the polling place of Willio 01 from Bethany Presbyterian Church, located at 4644 Sandy Plains Road, to Cobb County Community Church, located at 4649 Sandy Plains Road. Those in favor in the room, please mark your votes. Ms. Mossbacher has noted that her vote is in favor as well. And so this change is approved.
Okay. Our next request is to change the location of polling place for Murdoch 01 from Murdoch Elementary School at 2320 Murdoch Road, Marietta, Georgia, 30062, to Atlanta Chinese Christian Church Northwest at 1837 Bill Murdoch Road, Marietta, Georgia, 30062. The reason for this change is Murdoch 01 is in one of our schools. Atlanta Chinese Christian Church has agreed to be a polling location for future elections. There are 4,073 active registered voters. The distance is 2.2 miles from the existing polling location. It is inside of the precinct boundary, and this change will be effective July the 19th, 2021.
Thank you. I'd like to open up the floor for the board for any comments or questions.
I have a question, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
I was wondering if is this poll also on the slate for being split, since it is over the 2,000 voters? Are we also looking at potentially needing to split the poll?
Janine?
I'll answer that. So the 2,000 voters that you're referring to, that is a threshold in the code that if there is a line of an hour or more and the poll has 2,000 or more, then we would be subject to that code section and have to bring in more poll workers, more equipment, or split it. So there are other remedies besides splitting. So what we're trying to look at, and we have a couple of those on our agenda today, are the polling places that are over 5,000 or around the 5,000 to 6,000 voters. And so we're trying to start with the really large ones, and we wouldn't necessarily want to get every precinct to 2,000 voters. That is just the trigger in the code that says you need to look at the equipment or the poll workers or splitting it if the line gets to be an hour or longer in a general election.
Thank you. Thanks.
Could I ask a question? How do we know what to do to be able to satisfy that code requirement?
We would be, we always have tracked, the hour line has always been there in the code. It's just, it was firmed up in that section. But it's always said that if you have, a line of an hour or more, and we've always tracked at the end of the night when the last voter votes. The new code says that you check the time, the wait time in the morning, in the midday, and the afternoon. So that was a change to calculate whether there's a line or not. But we've always had that kind of a law. And generally, we will look at providing more equipment or more workers. There's, you have to look at what caused the line and then try and fix it.
And if I might ask, to your point that we've always tracked that information, do we have a sense of what that wait time was in our most recent general election?
We can get you that data. I don't have that with me. And this particular change is a polling location change. It's not a
Precinct split.
Yeah.
But I believe and I don't want to propose to put words in my, fellow board member's mouth, but to the extent that she raised it in connection, the 2,000 number in connection with the potential poll change, if there is going to be a subsequent change, perhaps a poll split, having numerous changes that happen in relatively quick succession could be problematic and perhaps confusing for our voters.
Yes, that's correct.
Is there further comment with regard to this proposed change? Is there a motion at this time?
I move to approve this poll location change.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and properly seconded to approve the changing of the polling place Murdoch 01 from Murdoch Elementary School to the Atlanta Chinese Christian Church located on Bill Murdoch Road. If we'll go ahead and vote here in the room, please. Ms. Mossbecker, if you will provide your vote verbally, either yes, no, or abstain.
Yes, on this one.
Thank you. The change is approved.
Okay, thank you. Our next request is to change the location of polling place for Cooper 01 from Cooper Middle School at 4605 Ewing Road, Austell, Georgia, 3016, to Cobb Police Academy at 2435 East West Connector, Austell, Georgia, 30106. Cooper 01 is a school, and we are able to secure Cobb County Police Academy, which is also a Cobb County government facility, for them to be a polling location. There are 5,297 active registered voters. It is 3.2 miles from the existing poll. It is inside the boundary location, the precinct boundary, I'm sorry. This change will be effective January the 1st, 2022. The police academy will not be able to accommodate us until next year.
Are there any comments from the board with regard to this proposed change? Yes, Ms. Mossbeck.
Corey, I did have a. So this was another. I should preface this by saying I actually work at this poll. I was the assistant manager there in this past election, and I do feel like this is. I don't know if we know how long the voters have been voting at Cooper 01. I obviously haven't been there for the whole history, but I would like to know how long that poll has been the poll for this particular precinct, especially because I feel like that's pretty far away, and I also feel like it's not exactly a good substitute, the locations. So I'm a little bit concerned about this one.
Yes.
I also have concerns, and the concern is about the location, because we have I received continuing comment about the sheriff's presence at our polling locations. And perhaps a misunderstanding of our relationship with the sheriff's department concerning securing the elections. But I am a little bit concerned about the perception and the reactions of our voting public.
Are you saying mainly the location, or?
I am saying of the location, but
Okay.
Again, I just wanted to voice that opinion.
You said it's 2 miles, you say, difference?
It's 3.2 miles.
Right. Yeah, I understand how difficult it is for us to secure adequate and appropriate polling places, and I know that it's much more complex than many of our
I was telling
voters
Steve they'll be
understand.
safer, they'll feel safer
Yeah,
anyhow.
but
around the
many
police academy.
many members of our public will not feel safer. They may feel a sense of intimidation.
Oh, with the police academy?
I just need to be clear that even the sheriffs who circulate at our other polling locations, sometimes there's a question that's raised about that. So I don't know, I don't think we have ever denied any recommendation. So I don't know how our staff responds to that.
Madam Chair, if I may respond?
Yes, please do.
Okay. This particular potential polling place was suggested by Commissioner Sheffield, whose district it's in. And so we pursued it based on her recommendation. The fact that we chose the Cooper Middle School to replace it with, it is in that precinct, so it falls in those boundaries. And we have been trying for several years, as Ms. Brooks knows, to remove polling locations from schools. Basically, it is a perceived safety issue for the kids when they are in session, because there are many elections when school is in session. And we've had also cases where the school is locked down due to a perceived security issue, and voters could not access the poll. So with a few of those instances in the past, we committed, I believe it was 3, maybe 4 years now ago, to try and get out of the schools. And, little by little, a new polling place will be given to us or as an opportunity to go look at. And in this case, the opportunity came from the commissioner. So we did discuss with her perceptions of the parts of the community not being comfortable there. It was something that she felt was not a barrier, but that's just one commissioner.
Thank you, Janine. I appreciate your addressing that. And I do want to say that I am encouraged that we are pursuing close relationships with our municipal so that we can perhaps move more to governmental properties for our polling and maybe stabilize some of the changes.
I have a comment, or really a question. I'll hold that to inquire as to whether there are any further comments or questions. Jennifer, do you have anything, Jennifer, further?
Yeah, I just wanted to know, do we know how long, Janine, how long the voters have been voting at Cooper Middle School?
I don't have that information offhand. No, I didn't come prepared with that. I would
Okay.
have to say it's probably been a long time. As I said, in the past, schools were our standby as government buildings and as buildings that are located throughout the county. We used almost all the schools that we could. So I would say it's probably been a long time that we've been in that school.
And then I do know, it's approaching 5,300 voters at this. So this is one of the bigger polls. Is this one on your list for splitting?
It would not be necessary to split this because the police academy has a large space and large parking. So this would be a facility that could accommodate a large poll.
Okay, thank you.
That actually was my question. I was curious about whether this would be one that would be subject to splitting. And I guess further to that, I know that there are several, as you made reference to, Janine, that there are several steps that we can take to ensure that there aren't lengthy lines, as referenced in the code. Splitting is just but one, and ensuring that 2,000 kind of number, that threshold is met. But given the fact that you referenced that this is a larger facility, I guess what are the plans or initial thoughts around the number of the amount of polling equipment that will be there, increasing staffing to accommodate these 5,300 voters that are likely to vote in this location?
Yes, so on a November even year election, a regular general election for governor, for president, we are required to have one voting booth for every 250 voters. Mm-hmm. So that threshold is the max. That is, where we would go for the biggest elections. The smaller elections, we size it by, looking at past data, looking at how many people have already voted early. We're going to be working on our early voting to try and expand that a little bit so that we can get people voting before Election Day so that we can not have lines. There's many different solutions, and a combination of them will get us to the point where we don't have lines.
Okay, excellent. Anything further with regard to this proposed change? I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion.
Yes.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded to request the approval to change the location of polling place Cooper 01 from Cooper Middle School to Cobb County Police Academy. Those of our board members in the room, if you'll go ahead and register your votes. And Ms. Mossbacher, if you will register your vote, please. Yes,
I'm a
no, or
no on
abstain.
this one.
I'm sorry?
No, please.
Okay.
No, please. No vote?
Yes, it's registered as no. Thank you, Jennifer.
Okay.
This particular change is approved, 3 in favor, 2 not in favor. We've got 2 more to get through. Yes, Ms.
Okay, yes, thank you. Okay, our next request is to recommend the division of Harmony Leland 01 precinct in order to form Harmony Leland 02 precinct. The polling place location for Harmony Leland 02 will be located at Impact Worship Center at 6925 Mableton Parkway, Mableton, Georgia 30126. The remaining portion of voters in Harmony Leland 01 will continue to vote at South Cobb Community Center at 620 Lions Drive, Club Drive, Mableton, Georgia 30126. We are making this change to divide Harmony Leland 01 to create a second polling location to accommodate the large number of voters pertaining to the long wait times. There are 6,769 active registered voters. So this means that Harmony Leland 01 will now have 4,309 active registered voters, and Harmony Leland 02 would have 2,460 active registered voters. The distance from the existing polling locations would be 3.6 miles. It is inside the precinct boundary. This change will take effect January 1st, 2022. This will give us enough time to hire new staff, obtain new equipment, and at the present time, we would be able to handle the upcoming November election at the current location.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there comment with regard to this proposed change? Jennifer?
Sorry, I just wanted to ask about, was there any options that were within the precinct boundaries for this particular, for Harmony Leland 01? I know we're not switching that one. We're just looking at dividing, but have we looked at why Harmony Leland 01 is outside of those precinct boundaries, or is that not something we looked at in this process?
The place for Harmony Leland 01 is the current polling place, which is the South Cobb Community Center. And that is a county facility, and it's actually quite popular with the voters, even though it is outside of the boundaries. So no, we are keeping that one.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further? There being no further comment, I'll entertain a motion to approve the recommendation.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded to recommend the division of Harmony Leland 01 to, in order to form Harmony Leland 02. All those in favor? Here in the room? as well as Ms. Mosbacher, your vote. If you'll just say your vote out loud, please.
Yes.
Thank you. This recommendation is approved.
You can do it. Now I'm going to turn over our next request over to Janine. Do you want me to read it out? Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Ms. Kara. You did a great job.
Yes, thank you,
I'm sure
Kara.
I won't do as well, but the next item, because there were questions from the board earlier, I thought I would take this one and present it myself. This is for Sewell Mill 03. And Sewell Mill 03 was at the Grace Marietta Church on 675 Holt Road in Marietta. And they have notified us that they are not able to be a polling location any longer. So in our search for a new location to replace that one, we first found the Emmanuel Korean Methodist Church on Old Canton Road. It is outside the precinct boundaries. It does have a fantastic large gym facility for us to be in that polling location. And they did agree to be a polling location. So our initial thought was we would just have to move the entire poll over, and that is still an option for this board if that's what you would choose to do. But as you can see, it is outside the precinct boundaries. So in the meantime, the St. Catherine's Episcopal Church, they used to be one of our polling locations, and we had reached out to them again because they do fall into the precinct boundaries. And after we had secured the Emmanuel Church, we then, St. Catherine's came back and said that they would be willing to be a polling location. So being that this church has almost 5,000, the precinct has almost 5,000 voters, we considered how we could use both facilities. And the plan that we presented to you today is to have the Sewell Mill 03 stay in the St. Catherine's, or move to the St. Catherine's Episcopal Church, where it falls in that precinct boundary of that half of the precinct, and that we would divide and create Sewell Mill 4, and they would go to the Emmanuel Korean Methodist Church. The side that would go to the Korean Methodist Church has a larger split in that, because you have to look at where you split the boundaries. It has to be on roads and topographical lines like rivers and railroad tracks and things like that. So if we split it at this location, the new Sewell Mill 4 at the Korean United Methodist Church would be 2,883 people, and those remaining or moving to St. Catherine's would be 1,945. Now, again, this is the proposal that we brought to you, but there are a couple of options. If you aren't comfortable with the folks that are over here on the Sewell Mill 4 in the pink, going all the way over to the Emmanuel Church, we could flip-flop it so that those in the Sewell Mill 3 go to the Emmanuel Church in the blue area, and then the ones in the pink in the new polling place go to St. Catherine's. But then both polls are outside the new precinct boundaries. The other option is we can not split it at all, which was originally what we were going to do before St. Catherine's came on board. And we could have the entire Sewell Mill 3, the old boundaries, which is the whole space, going to the Emmanuel Church, which is the only option that is big enough to take all of them. St. Catherine's is not large enough to take the entire poll. So I know that's a lot, but that's kind of the options that are in front of this board. But because Grace Marietta is no longer with us, we have to make some kind of move. And this has to be effective July 28th, which is the last day that we are able to make a change for the November election coming up.
Okay. Thank you, Janine. Entertain comments?
what they're going through, it's tough to find these places. And so, don't like it, but I think that's maybe the one thing we can have to, you know.
Yes.
I had,
Steve?
I guess my initial reaction to this proposal was that it appears like we're discriminating against the Sewell Mill 04 area, making those voters drive further and actually past the Sewell Mill 03. So it doesn't feel like a good solution, and particularly since folks have been voting at a poll that is only, I don't know how long, distant, 0.4 miles away. It's so close that that would really look bad. I'm sure you have searched through the Sewell Mill 04 area for other places. It's tough to find them, but I guess the distance seems, in this case, particularly where we're proposing to take these people past the 03, maybe a fairer change would be to have the 04 voters vote at the St. Catherine's and the 04, I'm sorry, 03 vote at the Korean Church and 04 vote at St. Catherine's. That would be it'd be fairer between the voters of the two areas. Tough solution, a tough situation. And you say St. Catherine's cannot handle the whole district?
Yeah, they really don't have a large enough space for us to put all 4,800 voters in there, and of course, we expect everything to grow. Like I said, the other church had the bigger space, and they really could take the whole precinct, and that's where we began this whole endeavor. And Mr. Bruning, we did look at that solution, and that is still an option to have the Sewell Mill 3 go to the Emmanuel Church and Sewell Mill 4 go across the road to the St. Catherine's. Our feeling was that that would be problematic for this people in the Sewell Mill 3 because they would see the signs out at their old polling place, and they would most likely always show up at that one, and we would have people in the wrong place. Whereas the folks in the new Sewell Mill 4 would probably get on the Soap Creek Ridge Road, which is the large road that splits the two areas, and go up to the new polling location and not really go near their older, they wouldn't, like you said, go through and pass their old polling location. They would most likely take the main road up. So that, that is an option, and that's one we considered, so it would be up to the board to make that choice.
I will ask further to those voters that are located, or this precinct Sewell Mill 04. I note that the map and the comments note that this proposed SMO4 is located 1.6 miles from Sewell Mill 03 polling place, the current one. However, I think more relevant is, do we know the distance that, I guess, the most far-reaching portion of SMO4, how far do those voters have to drive to get to this new proposed polling location at the Emmanuel Korean Methodist Church?
Yes, I did do a Google Maps from the farthest away street to the new location, and it was close to 4 miles.
Okay. Whereas the voters that are moving from Grace to the new proposed Sewell Mill 03 are going 0.4. And I think I just raised that because I think it may further illustrate what could be looked at as preferential treatment to those voters that are in this new proposed SMO3 versus SMO4 based upon, similar to what Steve has made mention of.
I wanted to say that I live in this area, and this is a difficult decision to make. I appreciate the options that have been offered. As far as the actual distance, in my mind, I think in terms of travel time as opposed to actual distance as the crow flies. And I can say that I believe that the SMO4 people, voters, would most likely look at the quickest path to the new voting location, and it would be seen as just as close. But that doesn't make our decision much easier.
Jennifer, I don't know if you had any comment, but I just want to be certain that we've provided you with opportunity to provide comment if you do have something.
Thanks. I think this is a tough one. I mean, from looking at this and sort of trying to think about it objectively, I almost think we'd be better off to move the whole poll to the place that can accommodate the whole poll at this stage. For me, that's where I sit. I do also appreciate being given some options with this one, but I think it could be very confusing to split and then have a poll that's right across from where other voters are used to voting. I think that could create some out of precinct issues versus routing everybody to one new location. And I don't know if we have any wait time, stats of what this poll is in terms of on a major election, what they're looking at for wait times. But that would be my thoughts right now, is that keeping it not split and all going to the Korean Methodist Church. Those would be my thoughts.
Jennifer, we don't have, like I said, I haven't brought the statistics for wait times, but we did not have wait times in the November election last because we had such a heavy turnout in mail and early voting that election day was very low. So there weren't really significant lines on election day. We have those statistics, and I'll send the last few years if you want to look at them. But this split is more based on opportunity, because there are two places that want to be polling places. And honestly, as I think you are all aware, it's very difficult to find places who are willing to be polling locations. And when we have two willing participants, we try to make it work. And this polling location was large enough to split, but it's not necessary to split. It's just an opportunity because there are two polling places in the area.
Okay. What I believe I'm hearing, definitely what I know that I'm feeling, is just the sense of potential confusion for voters, especially in light of the fact that voters that will be in the new SMO4 will not be able to vote, in a location so very close to their previous polling location, and those that are in SMO3 previously in the same precinct would be able to. And I do note in the information that was provided that notification of the change, if it's approved, will be via precinct cards to affected registered voters. Posting signs, is there any type of additional communication plan around this change, but also, broader other changes, because we're beginning to make some pretty significant changes, and just wanting to make certain that effective communication is taking place to our voters.
Yes, it is always a challenge to find the ways that reach people in the ways that they get information. So we have our communications department here in Cobb County, and they assist us with Facebook posting, Twitter posting, the various types of social media, newsletters, People can sign up for the elections newsletter as well as their commissioner newsletters that have that kind of information. We put it on our website. But like I said, it's very difficult to find ways that reach people.
This is an ongoing problem. But getting back to what Jessica had to say, I think for a guy looking at the road, the route, since she lives over that way, I think it'd be just as quick to get over to this new one. For me, I would say, hey, I can get there a lot quicker, and it wouldn't bother me as much. But again, back to the other, Jessica will tell you, we've been dealing with trying to notify and get information out, and I mean, I imagine during your time, Steve, it was the same problem.
One of my thoughts is, I'm leaning towards what Jennifer has said, that if we're going to move to a location that can accommodate both, that to cut down on confusion, that might be a solution. As far as communication is concerned, I'm aware that we have apartment complexes and many grocery stores and other places where we have opportunities to communicate with our voters, well, specifically with apartments, and there are not very many apartments even in my area of District 2. But certainly we have opportunities to add flyers, to welcome packets. We have other things, so I continue to say that, and you know this, I continue to say that there are maybe more extensive ways that we can try to communicate with our voters.
Jennifer?
I agree with that wholeheartedly, Jessica. I think that's absolutely, anytime we make a change, if we can look for some new avenues for communication. But yeah, the more I think about this one, I like the idea of perhaps keeping the poll together to eliminate the confusion.
Any further comment or questions for Janine or her team? Okay. So how have we, I just want to be certain that we're managing this in the correct procedural way. I mean, it would appear that we can simply entertain a motion to approve the alternative as opposed to what was initially proposed.
Yes, if you'll state the motion as you want us to implement it,
Okay.
then you would just present it that way.
Okay. Anyone want to make the motion? Okay. But it needs to be stated as we want it to be implemented. So it has to be more than just I
Right,
move
because
to approve.
we've presented you our recommendation, and that would be, if you wanted to just say, I make a motion, that is the motion. But if you're going to make a different motion, you'll need to state what you want us to do.
It would basically be moving the polling place.
Sure.
For 3,
Yeah, absolutely.
not even addressing 4.
Yep, no, definitely understand that.
Jennifer, could you take a stab at this, since this was your original idea?
Do
And
you, I know
And I will
Jennifer,
second.
yeah, I know Jennifer, you have the materials that were circulated prior to the meeting. So,
Yes,
Okay.
I do have everything in front. I have everything in front of me. I just wasn't quite sure. Is it an option to do that, I guess, Janine, that the church would be, the Emmanuel Korean Methodist Church would be open to being the singular location?
Yes, that is an option.
Okay. So is that kind of how I should phrase it? I would make the motion to keep Sewell Mill as one precinct, as Sewell Mill 03, with the polling location located at the Emmanuel Korean Methodist Church.
yep,
Yes.
yep. Janine's nodding her head. I've been doing
Okay, great.
thumbs up to her as if she can see me, so we're all zoomed out
Okay,
on those
gotcha.
kind of things, yeah.
No, good. I didn't know who I only see the Board of Commission. I mean, I see the Board of Elections right now. So, great. So then I will make that motion to keep Smyrna 03 as one polling location and for their polling place to be located at the Emmanuel Korean Methodist Church.
If I might make one friendly amendment, I believe you said Smyrna 03, and I know you intended Sewell Mill 03.
Oh, sorry. Sewell Mill. Yes, sorry.
I'll second that motion.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we would approve the motion changing the Sewell Mill 03 polling location from Grace Marietta Church located at 675 Holt Road to the Emmanuel Korean United Methodist Church located at 945 Old Canton Road. Those in the room, if you'll vote your selection, as well as Jennifer, if you'll provide us with a voice vote.
Yes would be my vote.
Thank you.
And Chairwoman, if I can just clarify that the only one then that will go forward to the Board of Commissioners is the Harmony Leland split, because that's the only one that we're changing precinct boundaries. And because of the size of our county, the Board of Commissioners has to have final approval for boundary changes. So this board on that one will be just recommending the change, and the commissioners will make the final vote, and that is on the 27th of this month. But now this one is no longer a boundary change. This is just under your authority to make this motion.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, that's fine, yes. Thank you for that clarification. Moving on to other business as noted in the agenda, a request for approval to call and conduct a special election. Janine?
And I'm back in my regular.
Yes.
Okay, so the school board, both Marietta School Board and Cobb County School Boards have voted to call a referendum election to approve or deny a education splost. And so they have asked that we call the election and conduct it in conjunction with the November 2nd, 2021 election, which at this point is just 5 of our 6 cities. The city of Smyrna doesn't have an election this year, so all of the city elections are this year. And so now this becomes a county-wide election if this board approves us doing that. And they have approved a contract at the school board that looks similar to what is in our agenda, and so the contract is here for you to just review it, but the actual contract will be signed by the chairwoman. If you approve that, it will be the one that the school board has signed. So as soon as we get that from the school board, we'll make arrangements for you to sign the contract, if this board agrees.
Okay. Are there any questions for Janine or with respect to us managing this special election, November the 2nd?
I had a question on just the mechanics of having a city election simultaneous with a countywide election. I know the old days we had different ballots, and I guess you actually had different ballots for the backup, but how do you do that? I mean, how is that done now with the ballot machines? Are they programmed in and that goes right on the memory card?
Yeah, the ballot is created to have various different levels of races. You know, even in a regular election, you have different levels of government on one ballot. And so the voters that are in, for instance, the city of Austell will have the Austell city offices that they're eligible for and the SPLOST on their ballot. But those who are in unincorporated Cobb County will just be voting on the SPLOST vote. And I failed to mention, which somebody mentioned it earlier, that the elections for cities and for the school board are paid by those organizations. So in our contract, we have in there that we will calculate the amount that we have expended for those elections and invoice those entities, the cities and the school board, after the fact, and then they would return the payment.
Will we also, will we also have early voting as part of that
Yes.
election cycle?
Yes, we always have the 3 weeks of early voting. My team has been negotiating with the cities to have a site there in the city. But now that if this goes to a countywide, we may reevaluate how the locations are so that we can cover the whole county and add some more locations so that the entire county is covered geographically more equitably.
Great.
Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to request the approval to call and conduct a special election on November the 2nd for the purpose of presenting an education SPLOST referendum to Cobb County voters. Further, to authorize the chair of this board to sign the contract with the Cobb County School District. If everyone will register their votes, please.
Yes, Story.
Perfect, thank you. The motion passes. So moving on, so Janine, I will just wait for guidance from you with respect to when we get the final contract.
Yes, and there was one other thing I wanted to mention to the public, that for this, the November 2nd election, absentee by mail ballots can be applied for only during the period of time from August 16th to October 22nd. With the new law, that time frame has been further defined so that it's only that short window. So if we receive an application for this election prior to that, we have to reject it. So please wait to submit it until August 16th.
Okay. And the outstanding, or the outlying date, I know August 16th is the beginning of the time frame. What was the ending?
October 22nd.
Okay.
Will the Secretary of State site continue to have the sign up for those of us who are, shall we say, a little older than average voters?
Are you talking about the rollover?
Yes.
For elderly and disabled voters, they can select in and for each election cycle, they can select to be a rollover voter where they get a ballot for each election. But this is a special election. So those have to be applied for
Individually.
uniquely, yeah. So what you're talking about will go into effect next year, where if you apply for the primary, then you can select to have a ballot for every election in that cycle.
Okay.
Recognizing that it's a topic that we've raised with regard to the polling location changes, but similar question with respect to communication to voters, letting them know about this time frame, because once it becomes public, obviously, it's public now, that we're going to move forward with this election. It's perhaps likely that individuals will, voters will begin requesting those absentee ballots. So our communications team is looking at some type of plan.
Yes, waiting for this, this board to actually approve us doing that. We were going to start implementing a little bit more of that education. Where you select the application on our website, it's stated there as well. So if they're going through our website, they're going to get that information before actually filling out the application. But there is an application also on the Secretary of State's website, and there isn't any information on that. So, it'll be a matter of trying to get, again, to the forms of communication that people will see.
Mm-hmm. And it may not be technically feasible, but I guess there's a part of me that just thinks, like, if this isn't a valid time to complete an application, that the application not be able to be completed. Have we looked into that?
Well, for a while, we didn't have it on our website at all.
Okay.
But we got a lot of calls about it, so we decided to put the application there and have the information of the deadlines.
Okay.
So that people could, pre-fill it out and get ready to send it in, because they do have to print it anyway.
Right.
Okay. But it's a matter of, what is the right, either one would work, to take it down completely.
Could you put a big banner on it that said, do not mail before August 16th or something?
We could try that, sure.
Yeah. Just conspicuously, display the time frame within which it must be received to be
Yeah.
valid. So okay.
The one on the Secretary of State's website, if people go there, of course, they won't get
Sure.
that, but we can put something on our app.
Okay. Anything further on this? Moving on to, I guess, the more formal time period when we provide our comments, although we've been providing comments the entire time. Are there any board member comments we'd like to entertain at this time?
I'd just like to say I appreciate this being a standing agenda item, and I have no further comment.
Pat or Steve? I do have one comment, but again, I'll defer to the end. Jennifer, do you have anything you'd like to add? Okay. Well, yes, Steve.
I have one question. What's the status of the Mansour facility and renovation of that facility?
The county public support agency is working on that. That is it's IS department, the information services and property management. They are still working with the architect, and there is additional funding that has been identified as being required to complete that. So there's, a concern about starting work with the funding that's available when additional money is needed to finish it. So the Public Services Agency Director is going to be working with the commissioners to identify what needs to be completing that project.
I was just thinking it would be really nice to get the warehouse part done before the November election, so you could operate out of there instead of out of the Kennesaw warehouse. Even if, I'm sure you couldn't move the whole operation by that time and wouldn't want to. But just the warehouse piece, it's a lot quicker drive from Mansour to Whitlock than Cobb Parkway.
I agree, but
You got our vote.
Well, the comment I would like to raise is about the meeting time. Obviously, this is the first meeting that some of us, myself, Jennifer, and Steve have participated in since being appointed and sworn in. I do note that, however, having attended the June 21st meeting, that one of our voters raised a concern about the time of the meeting and whether it provides an effective opportunity for participation in the public hearing portion or provide public comments. And so I wanted to raise that with my fellow board members as well as with you, Janine, and your team. The possibility of potentially moving the meeting to a time that's a little bit more conducive to a greater amount of public participation, not during kind of the middle of the working afternoon.
right. Just before the rest of the board comments on that, as I think we talked about earlier today, just to let everybody know that, for instance, today's meeting to certify the election, the board is required to certify by 5 p.m. on the Monday after the election. So having it at 3 o'clock gives us ample time to do that certification. So that one, we're kind of stuck on that. We might be able to go to 3:30, but there is another board that meets after this or that has slotted this room after this board's meeting. I think it's 5:30.
Okay.
I believe. So having it too much later puts us in conflict with a potential other group. And I also asked about perhaps moving our regular meetings that are not certifications to an evening timeframe. And there is an issue with that because it requires the sheriff's deputies to be handling the security checkpoint and communications and potentially information services, handling all of the equipment here to work after hours, and their budgets would be impacted by overtime at that point. So those are our constraints, and I wasn't able to get any suggestions for additional after hours. There was a comment that if we wanted to move to a different day, but it would still be during the workday.
Okay, so the board that meets here after us is the sheriff, or the sheriff and the other kind of resources that you made reference to that would be impacting the budgets. Are those resources not implicated in the 5:30 meeting that takes place after us here on the second Monday?
Yes, yes, they are, as well as some of the other, like the Board of Commissioners, when they have their late meeting. The comments were that we don't have the funding to do any more late meetings, that they are kind of grandfathered in.
Okay. Any commentary or?
But we could have the meeting back at our facility, whatever time you want to have it, what we had before, I guess.
The facility at Whitlock?
Over
The
at West Park.
old board meeting, okay. Anything further with respect to board comments? Yes, Jennifer?
We were all at that June meeting, and I did feel like if we're not going to move the time to be more accessible, is there a way to look at having comments be virtual, or a way for people to submit ahead of time so that we could accommodate people who are working and might not be able to get to a 3 o'clock meeting?
I would tend to think, technologically, it's feasible. We've all been living in our homes and working in our homes for the last 18 months or so, so I would tend to think technologically that could be feasible, or should be feasible. Okay, so Janine's nodding her head, looks like she's going to look into that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's something we'd want to entertain, but I think if we're talking about accessibility and, making it, nobody was there for public comment today, and some of that probably does have to do with timing. It's difficult. I just, speaking as a working person, I understand getting to a government building at 3 o'clock in the afternoon is not always the convenient thing to do, but maybe being able to log in and have your comment or be able to speak to us would be accessible if we had a virtual option.
No, that makes perfect sense, because we do want to provide an effective opportunity for voters to participate in public comment and public hearing, so, okay. Anything further? Well, hearing none, speaking of our meetings, the next scheduled board meeting is August the 9th at 3 p.m. Will take place here. We have a standing agenda item of an executive session. I don't believe that is necessary today. Is that correct? Okay. That being the case, I will call this meeting, or I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting, the regular meeting of the Board of Elections of Cobb County at 4:13.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And thank you, Jennifer.
We had to vote.